Have you ever walked into a room and felt unseen, like your soul was there but your presence went unnoticed, like people were responding to some version of you that no longer exists? What if this invisible ache isn't your imagination, but a sign that your energy has outgrown your environment and your mind hasn't caught up yet? Rare souls like you, those with high emotional intelligence, deep empathy, and sharp intuition, often live behind a veil. You feel things others miss. You notice what's unsaid. You carry a knowing that cannot be explained, only felt. And yet, you've been conditioned to doubt this inner compass. You've been taught that attraction, respect, and love must be earned by doing more, smiling more, explaining more, and shrinking more. But what if everything you've ever chased could arrive the moment you stop chasing? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your life doesn't shift when people change. It shifts when your mind no longer needs them to. Carl Jung taught that the outer world is not random. It mirrors the structure of your inner world. If you constantly attract chaos, rejection, or smallness, it's not because you're unworthy. It's because some part of your psyche still believes you are. Your thoughts may seem harmless, but they are silent architects. They sculpt how others read your energy, how the universe echoes back your frequency, and how reality arranges itself around your presence. This is not law of attraction fluff. This is a psychological reality. The world responds not to your effort, but to your energy. And your energy is programmed by the architecture of your beliefs, most of which were never yours to begin with. They were inherited, imposed, or absorbed when you were too young to know better. That's why this video isn't about behavior hacks or seduction tips. It's about understanding the sacred mechanics behind what makes a woman magnetic without trying. You will discover how a single mental upgrade, one shift in self-perception, can change how people treat you, respond to you, and remember you. This is not magic. It's coherence. So let me ask you something no one dares to say out loud. What if your entire life has been shaped by thoughts you never questioned? And what if you've been trying to change your life while leaving your mind behind? This is the video you were meant to find, because your soul already knows nothing outside will change until you do. Have you ever wondered why your voice feels small in certain rooms, even when no one is silencing you? Why do you hesitate before expressing joy, success, or even your truth, as if you're waiting for some invisible permission to just exist? For so many women, especially those over 35 who've spent years mastering roles, pleasing others, or quietly holding families together, this shrinking doesn't begin in adulthood. It begins in silence, in childhood, when your soul first learned that being fully visible comes with a cost. This is not about confidence, it's about survival. You didn't become small because you were weak. You became small because you were wise. Somewhere along the way, your nervous system encoded a lesson. Being too much, too loud, too opinionated, too emotional made people uncomfortable. So, piece by piece, you dimmed. You made yourself digestible. You edited your light so others wouldn't choke on it. And you probably did this so skillfully, so repeatedly, that now you don't even realize you're doing it. You shrink as a reflex, not a decision. Carl Jung called this a complex, an unconscious pattern that forms around unresolved emotional wounds. When your authentic self threatens the comfort of your environment, a psychic split happens. You exile the bold, radiant parts of yourself to the shadow. You become agreeable, careful, sweet, and apologetic, not because it's who you are, but because it's how you learned to be safe. And here's the part no one talks about. You start mentally asking for permission in every space you enter, even when no one is denying it to you. How often do you soften your truth just to avoid making waves? How many times have you laughed off a boundary just to keep the peace? How deeply do you crave being fully seen while simultaneously fearing what might happen if you actually are? These are not small questions. They are clues to a deeper betrayal, the betrayal of your inner fire. Jung believed that when a woman suppresses her authentic voice for too long, she experiences what he called psychic fragmentation. The soul fractures into the you that people expect and the you that lives in silence. And the longer this split goes unexamined, the more life begins to mirror your fragmentation. People overlook you, relationships feel one-sided, opportunities pass by, and you quietly blame yourself. But what if none of this is your fault? What if shrinking was never your nature, but only a strategy your younger self created to survive environments that couldn't hold your truth? And most importantly, what would happen if you stopped asking for permission and started embodying your full presence unapologetically? Let this question land inside you. Let it burn through the parts of you still waiting to be chosen, approved, or allowed. Because the truth is, the only person who's still asking for permission is the version of you who forgot she already belongs. Why do you feel the need to explain your every choice, soften your words, or over-clarify your intentions, especially to people who've already made up their minds about you? It's a question that sits quietly inside so many women's lives, especially after decades of trying to be understood by those who were never really listening. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that love is earned through justification, that your truth only had value if it could be proven, softened, or made palatable to others. But what if the most powerful transformation begins the moment you stop explaining yourself? This is not about becoming cold or dismissive. It is about reclaiming a level of self-possession so rooted that your being no longer begs to be digested. In daily life, it shows up in the smallest moments. Declining a dinner without an excuse, saying no without a paragraph, choosing your peace without guilt. At first, it feels unnatural, rude even, because for years, your nervous system linked survival to being liked, to being understood. So the moment you begin to honor your choices without apology, your old self panics. The complex flares up. Carl Jung explained that when a woman reclaims her wholeness, she reclaims her psychic energy from all the places it's been scattered. This includes the energy wasted trying to manage how others perceive you. The need to explain yourself is often not a sign of clarity. It is a symptom of fragmentation. It means part of you still believes that safety is dependent on someone else's approval. But true inner alignment creates a psychic field that speaks before you do. People feel something when a woman no longer dilutes herself to be palatable. They may not understand it, but they respect it. Not because she demands it, but because she no longer leaks her power trying to earn it. And here's what's profound. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment your energy changes. You walk into a room differently. You speak from your center instead of your wounds. You allow misunderstandings to remain without panic. You no longer chase closure where there is none. Jung would say that this is the moment individuation becomes visible, not in loud declarations, but in silent embodiment. So ask yourself this: what would your life look like if you no longer tried to be agreeable in order to be loved? Who would you be if you stopped narrating your worth and simply lived it? How would your relationships shift if you no longer carried the burden of making others comfortable at your own expense? This isn't about rebellion. It is about coming home to your voice, to your truth, to the part of you that knows she is not here to be explained, she is here to be expressed. And the moment you stop shrinking yourself into someone else's understanding, you begin to rise into your own sacred wholeness. Have you ever wondered why the absence of a compliment can ruin your day more than the presence of your own joy? Why a stranger's indifference can suddenly make you question your worth, even when you felt confident just moments before? This is the subtle tyranny of external validation, how quietly it hijacks your nervous system, your choices, your voice. You don't even realize it's happening until you catch yourself shrinking in someone else's silence, performing in hopes of being seen, or overachieving just to be praised. In daily life, it shows up in the smallest ways. The need to hear back right away, the fear of being misunderstood, the compulsive urge to check in if someone seems distant. It even disguises itself as kindness, humility, or people-pleasing. But underneath the polite tone and over-explained sentences is often a deep fear. What if I'm not enough without their approval? What if I disappear without their applause? Carl Jung would call this the inflation of the persona, the mask we wear to earn acceptance, love, and belonging. When we rely too heavily on validation, we're not just seeking approval. We are projecting parts of ourselves into the hands of others. We let their gaze define us. Their silence becomes rejection. Their attention becomes oxygen. And this is where the danger lies. Because the more we outsource our worth, the more estranged we become from the core of who we are. The soul quiets, the center wobbles. The inner voice gets drowned out by the volume of external noise. But something powerful happens when you realize that validation is not love, it's control in disguise. And love that requires you to contort, beg, or perform is not love, it's dependency. When you finally stop craving validation, you stop negotiating your truth. You stop editing your needs. You stop offering versions of yourself that are easier to digest. Instead, you begin to live from a place that asks, does this reflect my essence? Rather than, will they like this? This shift is quiet, but seismic. Suddenly, you no longer panic when someone withdraws. You no longer obsess over how you were perceived. You start honoring your time, energy, and values, not as a performance, but as a sacred practice. You speak not to be impressive, but to be real. You dress not to be noticed, but to feel like yourself. You make choices that may disappoint others, but finally feel aligned with your center. That is what individuation looks like in real time, a slow return to your original voice. So ask yourself honestly, how much of your life has been shaped by seeking approval rather than following alignment? How often do you abandon your truth to avoid disapproval? And what part of you is still waiting for someone else to confirm what your soul already knows? The truth is, validation is addictive, but wholeness is liberating. When you no longer need someone else to tell you who you are, you begin to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. That is the moment you become untouchable, not because you no longer feel, but because you finally belong to yourself. Why do you keep meeting people who misunderstand you, drain you, or disappear the moment you stop performing? Why does it seem like no matter how much you grow, life keeps looping the same painful patterns with different faces? This isn't a sign that you're broken, it's a mirror reflecting your inner frequency. Not the version of you who speaks confidently in meetings or posts affirmations online, but the one who still carries the unconscious wounds you haven't yet healed. Most of us believe we attract based on what we want. We think if we desire love, we'll meet someone who can love us. If we crave peace, life will hand us serenity. But Carl Jung saw something deeper. We attract not from our desires, but from our state of consciousness. Our outer life is shaped by the frequency of our unresolved inner life. A woman can pray for emotional safety, yet continue to feel drawn to emotionally unavailable men. A man can ask for respect while secretly allowing himself to be walked over. Why? Because the unconscious doesn't listen to what you say. It responds to what you are. This is why healing isn't just about thinking better thoughts. It's about transforming the emotional soil beneath them. If your nervous system is still wired for survival, your soul will seek out chaos, not because you like it, but because it's familiar. If you haven't made peace with abandonment, you may unconsciously find yourself attracted to those who withhold love, mistaking it for mystery or passion. These patterns are not punishment. They are invitations to meet the parts of yourself you've neglected, abandoned, or shamed into silence. The truth is, energy doesn't lie. You may dress it up in confidence, but if the core of you still vibrates with fear, life will reflect that. You may pretend to be independent, but if your inner child is still begging to be chosen, you will magnetize relationships that dangle love like a reward. Jung called this the shadow projection, when the parts of ourselves we disown begin to appear in others. That is why certain people trigger you so deeply, why certain relationships hurt more than others. They're not random, they're your unconscious made visible. But here's the power. The moment you stop seeking love through self-betrayal, you change the signal you send to the world. When a woman stops asking, "How can I be chosen?" and starts asking, "Does this reflect my worth?" the universe rearranges. You no longer need to chase, prove, or shrink. The wrong people begin to fall away, not because they changed, but because you did. They no longer recognize the version of you they used to manipulate. And in their place, aligned souls begin to appear, those who mirror not your wounds, but your wholeness. So ask yourself, what emotion is your energy broadcasting right now? What unresolved fear or unmet need might still be shaping your choices? And if you looked at your last 3 relationships as symbols, not stories, what would they be trying to teach you about the parts of yourself you've abandoned? You don't attract what you deserve. You attract what you believe you are safe to receive. When you shift your inner frequency from fear to worth, from need to knowing, from survival to sovereignty, everything around you begins to respond differently. Not because life got easier, but because you finally got real. What if your highest self isn't someone you need to become, but someone you forgot you already were? What if healing isn't about adding more, but peeling back the layers of fear, performance, and programming that taught you to feel unworthy in the first place? The question isn't how to become powerful. The real question is, what made you forget you already were? From childhood, many women were taught to earn love by softening their truth, making themselves smaller, more palatable, more pleasing. Being too bold was labeled arrogant. Having standards was called demanding. Speaking up was punished, so silence became safety. Over time, you didn't just lose your voice, you lost your memory of the woman who once roared. But Carl Jung reminds us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is not about building a new self. It's about returning to the inner authority that was buried beneath layers of shame and societal molding. You were born with the blueprint of the queen archetype already inside you, not a queen who dominates others, but one who governs herself. A woman who knows that her value isn't tied to how much she gives, sacrifices, or tolerates, but to how deeply she honors her own boundaries, desires, and truth. Yet this queen often lies dormant, hidden beneath decades of conditioning that taught you to outsource your worth, to seek validation in relationships, to chase love by abandoning your needs, to confuse being needed with being loved. The tragedy is not that you don't have power, it's that you forgot how to feel it. You forgot the way your body stiffens when something isn't right, the sacred anger that rises when your spirit is being disrespected, the intuition that whispers no long before your mind catches up. Jung said that when we ignore the inner voice long enough, it moves into the shadow. It begins to sabotage, explode, and collapse. The moment you suppress your queen, you invite chaos to do the speaking for her. But when you begin to remember, when you stop chasing roles that don't fit and start reclaiming the voice that never truly left, you stop asking for a throne in someone else's kingdom. You realize you were always meant to build your own. This is not a performance. This is not a trend. This is a return. You are not rising for the world. You are rising for the little girl who once thought she had to disappear to be loved. So ask yourself, what parts of your power have you mistaken for problems? When did you learn that softness was safer than sovereignty? And if you were to live tomorrow as if you remembered who you were, not who you're trying to become, what decisions would instantly change? The queen isn't a future version of you. She is the truth beneath your survival self. And when you stop asking for permission to be her, the world stops handing you roles that betray her. You don't become a queen. You awaken the one you were always forced to forget. Have you ever felt like the world keeps handing you roles you never auditioned for? Caretaker, fixer, peacemaker. Even when your soul whispered, "This is too small," you stayed, out of fear, out of habit, out of love. But something shifts when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop lowering your voice to avoid rejection, when you stop shrinking your energy to keep others comfortable. That shift is not just a moment, it is a rebirth. Taking your place is not an act of arrogance. It is the most radical form of remembering. You're not claiming superiority. You're finally stepping out of survival. The masks fall off, the roles dissolve. What remains is your original authority, the quiet, unshakable knowing that you belong not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Carl Jung said that the greatest tragedy is to become unconscious of oneself. And for many women, this unconsciousness took the form of adaptation. You became who the room needed you to be. You became what your family could tolerate. You became lovable at the cost of being whole. But the moment you take your place, without apology, without explanation, without waiting for permission, you no longer ask the world to recognize your worth. You simply radiate it. People may leave. Some will get uncomfortable. But that is not your loss. It is the energetic pruning that makes room for those who can truly meet you where you are going. When a queen reclaims her throne, it doesn't mean war. It means peace, because the internal battle finally ends. Taking your place means speaking when you used to stay silent, walking away when you used to explain, saying yes to yourself without guilt, not because you've hardened, but because you've softened inward toward your own truth. And when you align with that truth, life cannot help but respond. Opportunities arrive, relationships recalibrate, energy returns, not because you forced the shift, but because you became impossible to ignore. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming undiluted. The version of you who walks into a room and does not scan for approval. The version of you who loves without losing herself. The version of you who no longer negotiates with her intuition. That woman is not a fantasy. She is a memory waiting to be reactivated. So ask yourself, what are you still apologizing for that is actually part of your magic? Who are you still shrinking for that wouldn't know how to love you in your fullness anyway? And if life reorganized itself based on your true frequency, what would you allow to fall away today? You don't take your place by demanding space. You take it by becoming fully present in your own energy. The moment you do, everything begins to change, not because the world finally sees you, but because you finally see yourself. And from that place of inner recognition, life can only mirror back the truth. You were always meant to sit on the throne of your own becoming. If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.